They do not fear your strength. Strength alone is common. Loud, emotional, scattered strength is everywhere. What they fear is the moment your strength learns direction, the moment your attention locks onto one objective and refuses to drift, refuses to negotiate, refuses to bleed itself out into noise, entertainment, meaningless conversations, and the endless low-grade chaos of modern life. Because a man with focused attention is no longer easy to manipulate. He is no longer easy to distract, easy to bait, easy to delay, easy to exhaust. And that is exactly why the world around you has been engineered to keep you mentally fragmented. They wake up distracted. They go to sleep distracted. And in between, they call that existence. Then 5 years pass and nothing changes except the depth of their frustration. That is not bad luck. That is the natural consequence of a scattered mind living inside a system specifically designed to keep it scattered. Because the oldest truth in power is also the simplest. A man who cannot command his attention cannot command his life. And a man who cannot command his life does not remain a man in the full sense of the word. He becomes material. He becomes utility. He becomes fuel for agendas that are not his own. Machiavelli understood this before the modern machine of distraction ever existed. He saw that the men who rose were not always the most gifted, not always the most admired, not even always the most intelligent. They were the ones who could direct themselves, the ones who could hold their mind on a target with cold steadiness while the world shifted, panicked, tempted, and burned around them. That is the level of focus we are talking about here. Not productivity tricks, not shallow routines designed to make you feel organized while your mind remains weak. We are talking about focus as a weapon, a psychological blade sharp enough to cut through noise, through temptation, through internal weakness, and through every force that tries to pull you off your path. Most people will hear this and do nothing with it. They will nod, agree, feel briefly inspired, and return immediately to the habits that are quietly erasing their future. But the man who truly absorbs this becomes something else entirely. He becomes difficult to move, difficult to interrupt, difficult to break. He becomes dangerous in the quietest and most serious sense of the word. The first enemy is not outside you, it is in you. Before you overcome external resistance, you must confront the mind that has been betraying you from within. This is the truth most men avoid because it is easier to blame circumstances than to admit that the disorder outside is often being amplified by the disorder inside. Machiavelli did not waste his life complaining about reality. He studied it, understood it, and positioned himself above it. That is exactly what you must do with your own mind. Right now, your mind is a battlefield. Notifications compete with memory. Desire competes with discipline. Fear competes with ambition. Entertainment competes with meaning. And each time you surrender your attention to something that does not deserve it, you lose a piece of your power. Not all at once, quietly, progressively. The way a man bleeds from a wound he never bothered to close. That is what makes distraction so lethal. It rarely feels like destruction. It feels like normal life, staying updated, staying connected, staying entertained. But what it is really doing is keeping you permanently reactive, permanently shallow, permanently too scattered to build anything with depth. The Machiavellian thinker refuses that condition. It does not chase every signal. It does not bow to every urgency, every impulse, every passing mood dressed up as an important thought. It observes, it filters, it selects. It treats attention as currency because that is what it is. Every second spent consuming the meaningless, feeding dead conversations, circling anxieties you cannot control, or handing your mind over to the cheap theater of distraction is a second spent forever. Gone. The cold truth is simple. The man who masters his inner world becomes increasingly immune to the chaos of the outer one. Once your mind is disciplined enough, people can talk. Markets can shift, setbacks can arrive, and still you remain standing in the center of it, focused and unmoved, because your power is no longer coming from the environment. It is coming from the architecture you built within yourself. Machiavelli's secret was never luck, it was preparation. He understood that victory is rarely won in the moment of confrontation. It is built beforehand through structure, sacrifice, and elimination. Focus is not primarily about adding more discipline. It is about cutting what weakens direction. Most men do not fail because they are lazy. They fail because they are divided. They are trying to hold multiple identities at once. They want greatness while protecting every comfort that prevents it. They want deep work while staying available to every distraction. They want momentum while feeding relationships, habits, and environments that quietly drain the energy momentum requires. A blade does not cut with its entire body. It cuts with its edge, and your edge is formed only through ruthless removal. Focus is a process of narrowing, identifying the one thing that matters more than the rest, and reorganizing your life around it until everything irrelevant begins to fall away. That is why real focus changes a man's personality. His speech becomes shorter. His patience for nonsense disappears. He stops laughing at what wastes him. He stops reaching for people who have chosen stagnation. And yes, the people around him notice. They call him cold. They say he has changed. They accuse him of becoming distant. They are right. He has changed. He has moved from drift to direction. He has stepped out of the herd and into a life shaped by his own will. This is what the great rulers, generals, and strategists all shared. They were not always loved. They were not always understood, but they were not conquered by distraction. They moved cleanly through resistance. Their attention was not for sale. That is what you are building now. Not a man who tries to focus, not a man forever restarting, a man who becomes focus itself, a man whose presence signals that he is operating from a level of internal command most people will never touch. Cold, quiet, deliberate, untouched by triviality. That is the identity. If attention is destiny, then powerful men protect attention more fiercely than anything else they own. Not money, not status, not image, attention. Because wherever a man's attention goes, his life follows. The conquerors understood this. The builders understood this. The architects of empires understood this. And that is why they built walls, not physical walls first, psychological ones, invisible barriers around their mind, their time, and their availability. Machiavelli would have recognized immediately what the modern world has become. A machine designed to breach those walls. Your phone is not neutral. Your feed is not neutral. News cycles, notifications, recommendations, outrage, the constant pull to look, check, respond, compare, all of it exists to capture your attention and hold it hostage. An anxious man consumes more. A distracted man obeys more easily. A fragmented man cannot build. And while the average person scrolls, reacts, and calls that engagement, the serious man has already stepped back and seen the system for what it is. He has made the colder decision. He will not give his mind away for free. Protecting your attention begins with a brutal audit. Every app, every habit, every conversation, every environment, every person with regular access to your nervous system. You ask one question: does this sharpen me or dull me? There's no neutral. Everything is either increasing your clarity or draining it. Once you begin seeing distraction not as entertainment but as a threat, your whole relationship with your own time changes. You stop being instantly reachable. You stop performing availability. You stop responding to everything with urgency. You become strategically unreachable. And in that protected space where your attention is finally your own again, something extraordinary happens. Your mind starts clearing. Your ideas stop leaking. Your output deepens. The version of you buried under years of interruption starts emerging, and it emerges harder, calmer, more dangerous than the scattered version ever could have imagined. What makes this deeper than ordinary self-help is that real focus does not merely improve output, it rewires identity. This is where most men fail, because they try to act focused without becoming the kind of man for whom focus is natural. But the brain does not transform through intention. It transforms through repetition. Each time you refuse distraction, you are not simply making a good decision. You are casting a vote for a new self. Each time you return to the work instead of escaping into comfort, you are training your nervous system to associate discomfort with power instead of danger. Each time you sit in silence instead of reaching for stimulation, you reclaim territory that the modern world colonized without permission. Over time, not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily, the appetite for distraction weakens. The threshold for nonsense rises. The things that used to consume hours of your day begin to look childish. You are no longer being disciplined. You are becoming someone for whom scattered living feels beneath his standard. This is where the identity shift becomes visible. A focused man carries himself differently. There is stillness in him, not stiffness, not performance. Stillness. A room feels it before it understands it. He does not seek validation because his direction is coming from within. He does not argue to prove his intelligence because he is too busy converting intelligence into movement. He does not bend himself around every opinion because he no longer needs consensus to remain certain. He has become internally governed. And that type of man is profoundly difficult to control. Machiavelli understood that true power is rarely loud. It does not rush. It does not panic. It does not beg to be seen. It is the man in the room who speaks least and alters most. The one who moves slowly because he has already calculated more than the others. The one whose focus is so complete that the world begins, almost against its will, to bend around him instead of him bending around the world. But there is a darker side to focus that almost no one wants to tell the truth about. Real focus costs. Nobody builds anything extraordinary without losing something. Not a symbolic sacrifice, a real one. Comfort, ease, familiarity, versions of themselves that once felt safe. Sometimes people, sometimes opportunities that looked good but were not aligned. Sometimes entire identities built around belonging instead of becoming. A man unwilling to sacrifice does not have a vision. He has a fantasy. Machiavelli was clear about this. You do what is necessary, not what is comfortable, not what preserves your popularity, not what keeps weak relationships intact, but what serves the objective. And what serves the objective often feels brutal from the outside. It means withdrawing from friendships that are slowly training you into softness. It means ending your addiction to constant entertainment. It means accepting that your transformation will make some people uncomfortable and refusing to explain yourself just to reduce their discomfort. It means choosing the future version of yourself over the approval of the present crowd. This is not cruelty. It is selection. You cannot carry passengers on the path to power. The man who is truly focused is in silent warfare every day, not with enemies in the obvious sense, but with comfort, comparison, and premature satisfaction. Comfort whispers that you have done enough, that rest is harmless, that tomorrow is available. It never sounds like weakness. It sounds like reward. Comparison takes your eyes off your own path and turns your progress into insecurity. It persuades you to measure internal growth against someone else's visible outcome, which is one of the fastest ways to poison focus. Premature satisfaction is equally deadly. Early wins soften men who are not built correctly. They taste progress and relax before the structure is complete. That is how momentum dies. The focused man treats every result as confirmation to continue, not permission to drift. He does not celebrate in ways that weaken him. He acknowledges, adjusts, and advances. Always forward, always colder, always sharper than yesterday. This requires architecture, daily architecture. No empire in history was built on inspiration alone. It was built on structure, deliberate, repetitive, non-negotiable structure. Your mind is no different. If your days are left to chance, chance will shape you. Machiavelli knew the prince who left his life unstructured would eventually be consumed by randomness. Structure is not a cage. Structure is armor. A man who builds his day with precision becomes less vulnerable to moods, external chaos, and internal inconsistency. The first moments of the day matter because they are the most psychologically vulnerable. Before the world starts speaking into you, you must decide what your mind serves. The man who fills the first part of his day with his phone has already surrendered the gate. Before any input, your mind should meet its mission. One target, one priority, one movement that, if completed, advances your vision in a meaningful and irreversible way. Then your day must be built around protecting the conditions required to execute that target. This means blocks of deep, uninterrupted work, not fragmented effort disguised as productivity, not multitasking, not switching between trivialities and calling it motion, real immersion. The kind of work state where time compresses because your entire cognitive system is pointed in one direction with no leakage. These periods are sacred. The serious man protects them with ferocity because he knows that his best work does not live in the cracks between distractions. It lives in silence, continuity, and depth. Outside of those blocks, he curates inputs. He reads what sharpens him. He speaks to people who elevate him. He places himself in environments that demand his best. And he ends the day with intention, not collapse. Reviewing what was executed, identifying where leaks occurred, and setting the stage for the next day's campaign. Rest is not escape. It is reloading. The focused man does not stumble into tomorrow. He prepares for it. There will come a time when the world seems to attack your focus all at once. Plans will break. Trusted people will disappoint you. Results will delay. Momentum will stall. The vision that once felt obvious will feel far away and possibly irrational. This is the moment that separates men who become unforgettable from men who return to being ordinary. Not talent, not resources, not luck. The ability to hold focus when focus feels impossible. Machiavelli wrote from exile, from loss, from collapse, not from comfort. He understood that the unbreakable man is not the one who never suffers disruption, but the one who turns disruption into refinement. The crisis does not make him abandon the path. It reveals whether he was truly committed to it or simply attached to it while conditions were favorable. To become unbreakable, you have to stop reading setbacks as punishment. They are information. The plan failed. Extract intelligence and build a better one. The person betrayed you. Reassess access and rebuild your circle with more precision. Results are delayed. Tighten execution. Eliminate inefficiency. Continue. This is the psychological immune system of a powerful man. He does not collapse at resistance. Resistance makes him more exact. And once you survive enough tests this way, something changes permanently. You stop fearing disruption. You stop fearing failure. You stop fearing the withdrawal of support, the judgment of spectators, the temporary darkness between effort and visible reward. Because you now possess evidence, not optimism, that you cannot be broken by ordinary force. And a man who knows he cannot be broken stops negotiating with lesser obstacles. So understand what has happened if you've stayed with this all the way through. You have not simply watched another video. You have sat inside a philosophy that outlived empires because it is built on something that does not change. The power of a mind that refuses to be conquered by noise. Everything we covered, the internal enemy, the sacrifice, the architecture, the silent warfare, the rewiring of identity, the protection of attention, the refusal to be distracted into mediocrity, none of it is theory unless you choose to leave it that way. It is a blueprint, your blueprint. The only question left is whether you return now to the life that was quietly consuming you, or whether you begin building the version of yourself this world has not yet met. A man with real focus does not just try harder. He becomes different, colder, deliberate, unavailable to triviality, unmoved by noise, unstoppable, because he is no longer divided inside himself. Starting now, you stop leaking your life into distractions that never deserved it. Starting now, your attention belongs to your vision. Starting now, you build the empire. Comment this below and mean it. I am unstoppable. I'll see you in the next one.